Tuesday, April 30th. Welcome to the Black and Gold Breakdown on the channel. If you're watching on YouTube, do all that YouTube stuff, like, subscribe, so you can get notified when we go live. But I appreciate you being here, however you're watching, wherever you're watching, making me part of your evening. It's always lovely to be doing this. So thanks for being here. Jared Bailey with you as always, USA Today. Behind the steel curtain, got my coffee here, got my water here. If I sound a little bit tired, it's because I am. I think just everything over the past few days, it's been a long stretch of days of content and writing and recording. It's just kind of hitting me today. So been a little bit sleepy, been a little bit groggy, but pushing through it. And here we are. On today's show, yesterday we went 2 hours, which was nuts. But the fact that so many of you were just consistently chilling with me for 2 hours, that was awesome. So I appreciate the fact that y'all were here and keep tuning in. Again, if we keep getting that many people in here on the daily, then I'll do it every day. We'll say 5 days a week. We'll see. Jared Mueller, I am out tonight. Bro, it's a Tuesday night. What the hell you think I'm doing in Pittsburgh on a Tuesday night? No, I went out a couple nights ago. I went out Sunday night. So I got my fix for the week. Don't worry. Hi, Concepts. It's good to see you as well. Let me take a sip of this real quick. Okay. Adam, right away. Do you think BMAC is full of it and just wanted clicks and follows? Oh, Ryan McFadden. No. I mean, I don't think that. Here's the thing. When it comes to stuff like that in the business of sports media, people don't just put things out there that they know aren't true unless they're stupid and want to completely ruin their reputation. I think that if he got information or knows something, then he wouldn't put it out there if he didn't hear something or was aware of something. So that's my thoughts on it. Because somebody had said something to me, or not necessarily to me, had said something about, or the report that I put out last night about Courtland Sutton, because I got more Courtland Sutton news. And they had said, oh, he's a Steelers fan. He does stuff covering the Steelers. Of course he's going to say that. Who I root for has zero to do with why I would put out something false if I knew it was false, just to fuck up my own reputation or anything like that. That makes no sense. So I know, for me, I mean, even if I wasn't honest, I wouldn't admit that I was lying. But for me, I know I wouldn't put out anything if I didn't believe it to be true. I don't think Brian McFadden put out anything that he thought was false. So if he's saying that he thinks something's gonna go down, he must have reason to believe that. Somebody had commented on that post today saying, I can't remember the exact wordage of it, but he replied to them saying patience. So he really thinks something's going to happen. And if something does happen, then great. I think something's going to happen. It's just a matter of when something could happen that is still up in the air. And that, pretty much leads us into what we were going to talk about today. I mean, if you clicked on the video, Steelers trade rumors, they keep continuing. And they're going to continue until something gets done. Omar Khan went on the Pat McAfee show today. I think it was Tone Diggs asked him about, trade. No, it was Boston Connor asked him about trade rumors and everything like that. And of course, he did the whole general manager talk thing and, dismissed any sort of rumors. And it always kills me when fans will see that, or just, football fans in general, doesn't necessarily have to be Steelers fans, but they'll see that and be like, see, nothing's going to happen. And my response to that is what the hell did you think he was going to say? Yeah, we called the 49ers and those bastards told us no. He's not going to say that. So I fully expect something to happen. And look, it could be a situation where something doesn't happen until after June 1st. Because, that's when certain contracts or become more, the teams don't have to eat as much money when it comes to trades, releases, things of that nature. So it could be another month. We could be sitting here speculating about it for a month. I would like to think that that's not going to happen and that's something we'll get done soon. And then we'll have, said trade to talk about and break down and, picture what this player will look like in the Steelers offense. But at the same time, they're not going to rush it, nor should they. It's April 30th. Excuse me. Less than a week after the NFL draft. There's no reason to rush it. No reason at all to rush it. So I'm not worried about it. I think that Brian McFadden said, put out what he put out because he knows that something will happen. It's just a matter of when and if, or when, not if. Adam says, just like the whole center thing, saying multiple times they're comfortable with what they, yeah, exactly. And look, this is, all off season, it's been at the combine, telling us that we're comfortable with Kenny Pickett. We believe in Kenny Pickett. And then they sign Russell Wilson, trade Kenny Pickett, and then trade for Justin Fields. It's very much just general manager jargon where they're going to give a bunch of non-answers to, appease a question. Let me fix this real quick. That was is it still not straight? Sorry, that's going to bug me. If it's not, that's better. Okay. So yeah, they're going to give a bunch of non-answers that will, quote unquote, answer the question. But it's been like that all offseason. Though we believe in Kenny Pickett, and Kenny Pickett got traded. No one thought that they were going to sign Russell Wilson or trade for Justin Fields. They did both of them. It's very much a new era with Pittsburgh, where Kevin Colbert wouldn't have done anything to this point. The draft would have been all that you could talk about as Steelers fans because that's all that would have really happened. They wouldn't have signed a Patrick Queen. They wouldn't have signed a Russell Wilson. They wouldn't have made any sort of moves worth talking about because that's just not what they did under Kevin Colbert. Because in large part, the game passed Kevin Colbert by. Very much so. And it wasn't as evident because you had a Hall of Fame quarterback to mask a lot of issues. And a future Hall of Fame head coach would do that too. From whatever it may be, 2015 to 2019, 2020, when Ben was still Ben. So the prime years of the Killer Bees. They didn't make a lot of moves. The defense was terrible. But they were always, in that contender conversation because, all right, yep, you have Ben, you have Tomlin, and then Brown and Bell. But the game passed Kevin Colbert by a long time ago, and Ben Roethlisberger masked that. So did Mike Tomlin. So did, the collection of offensive talent that they had at the time. Chris Ballard might say that. Chris Ballard might say that, actually. Chris Ballard might be the guy, well, we tried, and those bastards said no. So I could see Chris Ballard doing that. That's fair. That's funny. That's actually really good. He was on McAfee today, too. Or, yeah, I think it was today. Today or yesterday. I think it was today. Because he had a string of them. Because he had Ballard, Brandon Beane from the Bills, and then Omar Khan. So he had a nice little string of them today. But yeah, you're right. Chris Ballard would say that. That's actually really funny. Kenny Pickett would still be on the team, but he tucked his tail and ran, asking for a trade. Good. I'm glad he did. I didn't want him to be on the team this year. And by the way, the fact that it became public knowledge that Cam Hayward, Pat Freiermuth, Minka Fitzpatrick, TJ Watt were all going out to dinner with Russell Wilson, basically saying, dude, please come here. We just need a competent quarterback to help us win. Tells you all you need to know. He lost the locker room. So while fans didn't want him there, guys didn't want him there either. And they'll never come out and say that, of course. But their actions speak louder than any words could. They didn't want him there. They were more than ready for him to be gone. And I highly doubt there was any frowny faces in the locker room when they found out that Kenny Pickett got traded. Just saying. What's up, Worthy? Good to see you. But so let's talk about the receiver stuff real quick. Some names. How do I want to go about this? Benjamin Albright, NFL Insider, does a lot of really good stuff in Denver. By the way, one of the first people to ever helped me in this business was Benjamin Albright when I was a freshman in college. That's my guy. One of the best dudes in the world. I love Ben Albright. Somebody had asked him on Twitter about like any teams that the Steelers have reached out to, inquiring about a receiver. And he said that around a half dozen teams the Steelers have reached out to, 2 of them said no. And so one of those teams being Denver, when inquiring about Courtland Sutton. The second we can assume is the 49ers with Deebo Samuel and Brandon Aiyuk. But that leaves, I mean, if there's half a dozen teams, that's 4 more teams, which means they're going big game hunting and they're trying to land somebody big. And so putting together who those other teams logically could be, I think Davante Adams and the Raiders were one of them. And we talked about this sparingly throughout the past week and whatnot, about Davante Adams being maybe an under-the-radar name that could be in the mix here. It very much feels like Davante Adams could be a name here. And when it comes down to the contract stuff, because he's got a big cap number this year, that would have to be negotiated in a trade of like, okay, you take this amount of money and we'll give you a higher draft pick because you take this amount of money this year, whatever it may be. So Davante Adams, I think, is a name that they've at least inquired about. Again, that's not me saying that I know that. I'm just going off of logic. And if there's 6 teams at least that they've reached out to, that one is one that would make sense, reaching out to the Raiders about Davante Adams. I think Seattle is another team that they've reached out to. And the 2 names that make sense there are obviously Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. The only thing with DK Metcalf is that the Seahawks just paid him not long ago. And that would be a pretty reasonable amount of dead money. So it could be Tyler Lockett. Either of them would be fine additions. I see a bunch of people hopping in. So let me just get to some comments that are here. D-Drews, we should thank Kenny Pickett because none of his non-competitive nature, we gained Peyton Wilson. Yeah, no, they literally, the pick that they traded for Kenny Pickett, the Eagles, Steelers took Peyton Wilson. So pretty good stuff. Worthy, your sub's been rising. Oh, thanks, dude. I appreciate that. Yeah, you were one of the first. So yeah, over the last year or so, like I said, I started paying attention to this and it's nice to see, a nice community developing. So I do appreciate it. I saw somebody else say something about, yeah. So as I said earlier, the post June 1 stuff, DK Metcalf would have to be one of those because of the money. And again, that is something that could come to fruition. Now they can agree to terms ahead of actually, filing the trade through the league, which is similar to what the Bills did with, I think it was Tre'Davious White. So, I mean, it can get reported that like, hey, the Seahawks and Steelers are agreeing to terms for a trade. It'll be done post June 1 to, salvage money for the Seahawks. That's possible. That's possible. Him and Pickens would have monster years. Yeah, the thing that worries me about that, man, is like DK Metcalf is a diva and a half. And loses his cool frequently. Like you see people on Twitter, especially during the season, where like he's just taking cheap shots at dudes when they're down and he's pissed off about not getting the ball. Like, I'm not sure I would want DK Metcalf for those reasons. Talent-wise, obviously the talent's there, no doubt. But like in terms of, that type of stuff, I would rather have Tyler Lockett for that reason. As much as I like George Pickens, he's already had his fair share of stuff. The last thing I want is George Pickens and DK Metcalf in the same locker room because of what could possibly happen. Again, their talents are undeniable, but I'm not sure I want DK Metcalf for that reason. So we'll see. Dude is a beast, but yeah, he freaks out too much, and it's kind of annoying. It's very annoying. The reports it could be Higgins. I don't think the Bengals would trade. I don't think the Bengals are going to trade Higgins at all. I think they're saying, look, we're going to ride this core for one more season. We know that T. Higgins isn't going to be here after this year, so we're just going to go balls to the wall and try to win a Super Bowl before he goes. Because you look at the guys that they have, obviously Burrow's great. But that duo of Chase and Higgins is one of the best in the league. Plus, they just drafted Jermaine Burton. They brought over Zach Moss to complement Chase Brown in the backfield. By the way, don't sleep on Zach Moss. That's a dude who was leading the NFL in rushing at one point last year before Jonathan Taylor got healthy. So Zach Moss is a good signing. They got some other pieces on the defensive side of the ball. I like a lot of their pieces. They brought back Von Bell, Geno Stone, Logan Wilson in the middle is a really underrated linebacker. I know Trey Hendrickson requested a trade. I don't know what's going to happen there. So we'll see. But I think that the Bengals, like I said it maybe 2 days ago on here, that right now the Bengals are like my way too early pick to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. So we'll see. I don't think that they're going to trade Higgins. I think they're going to ride this thing out and really try to go for, like, as long as they have Burrow, that window's open. But in terms of, like, since they've had Burrow, I think that they kind of view it as like, all right, this could be our last hurrah with this collection of guys. So I think that they're going to keep the band together for one last season and go for it. They know Burrow needs weapons to be great. Look, man, every quarterback to an extent needs help. You can't be thrown to fire hydrants and expect to be great. Look at every Hall of Fame quarterback in the history of football. All of them have had at least like one dude, And again, there's very few exceptions with like Dan Marino thrown to Mark Clayton and Mark Duper, which, by the way, it's not like they were scrubs. It's just they weren't like super duper stars. They were still good. But Jim Kelly had Andre Reed. Bradshaw had Swan and Stallworth. Mahomes has Kelsey and had Hill. Josh Allen had Stephon Diggs. Like, they make each other better. Joe Burrow is, for my money, the third best quarterback in football. He's that dude. He's incredible. And you don't make it to consecutive AFC championship games and come within a few plays of winning a Super Bowl by accident. So I'm a big Burrow guy. I love Joe Burrow. He's tremendous. Which I know, being a Steelers channel, it's like sacrilege to say that I like a Bengals player, but Joe Burrow will always have my vote, man. I love watching him play. He's tremendous. And he's just like very just chill. Like, just seems like a cool dude. So I'm all aboard the Joe Burrow train. Mark, if Burrow can stay healthy, they compete with KC for a Super Bowl. Yeah, I think so. I mean, they've beaten them in an AFC title game. They came within, a personal foul that moved Harrison Butker 15 yards closer to kick a game-winning field goal to winning another AFC championship game. Like, they came very close to winning consecutive title games in Arrowhead. Like, that's, that doesn't happen by accident. They're great. Burrow's great, man. So, Mark adds, Mahomes winning Super Bowl last year with a declining Kelsey and Rice. The only options was like Mahomes is one of one, dude. That's the thing. But in terms of the other receivers, it could be, Davante Adams, I think, is one. I think that that's a guy that they are a team they would have reached out to. I think that Seattle's another team that they would have reached out to about Lockett and DK. That still leaves two teams. If there's 6 teams in total, that still leaves 2 teams. One that comes to mind, Washington for Terry McLaurin. I feel like that call was at least made. Just say, hey, would you be willing to move on from him? We talked about it yesterday. I don't think that they are going to be willing to move on from him because they just drafted Jaden Daniels. They're going to want to keep as much talent around him as possible. McLaurin is by far their best receiver. But again, I think the call was at least made. And the last one, maybe the Saints. Saying what you could offer for Chris Olave. That's one that came to mind. No, I don't think that New Orleans is going anywhere this year. I think that their ceiling is being what they were last year, which is just violently mid. They're so boring. I hate watching the Saints. They are so boring. And so I wonder if the Saints were a team that were reached out to by Pittsburgh about Chris Olave. I mean, maybe they reached out to Dallas about CeeDee Lamb. Maybe. If they're inquiring about all these guys, I'm sure that they're going to make multiple calls just to at least see. There's no harm in seeing. But they definitely reached out to San Francisco, definitely reached out to Denver, and apparently reached out to Seattle, potentially about DK Metcalf and or Tyler Lockett. So they're going big game hunting. And whoever this receiver is going to be that they end up getting. Now, Zay Jones just got released by the Jaguars, and I saw some people throw his name in there. Zay Jones is fine, but he was about to be the fourth receiver on the Jaguars. So it's not as if that's – I don't have anything against Zay Jones, but that's not a needle mover. He would be better than some signings. I would like Zay Jones more than I would like DJ Chark. I'll tell you that. But the fact that they're calling all these teams about these big name receivers, I think that they're really swinging for the fences here. Another name I've mentioned before, Chris Godwin, Tampa Bay. You know, the Buccaneers have now 4 quality receivers with Mike Evans, Trey Palmer. They just drafted Jalen McMillan and Chris Godwin. I wonder if they'd be willing to move Godwin. Because they brought back Mike Evans. He's not going anywhere. I think that, you know, a nice feeler could be put out for Chris Godwin. I saw somebody mention the Bears and DJ Moore. Again, that's another situation where the Bears are giving Caleb Williams all the help that he can get because they've seen what happens when you don't give your quarterback help. They're not going to make that same mistake again. So I think that all of those receivers are staying intact. They traded for Keenan Allen. They drafted Rome Odunze. DJ Moore they acquired last year. I don't think he's going anywhere. So a Pickens DK fight would be interesting. Look, no, it wouldn't, man. I don't want to cover that. I don't want to get the notification that there's, you know, a fight between George Pickens and DK Metcalf because 1, it's incredibly believable, and 2, that would just be annoying. I'm incredibly hesitant. Like if we got the notification saying, "Hey, the Steelers traded for DK Metcalf," my first thought would be he's very good. My second thought would be this could end horribly. Like I'm very cautious of a DK Metcalf trade. That scares me. Are we just naming like former white receivers in the chat now? I got Gunnar Olszewski and Ryan Switzer consecutively. Ryan Switzer was Ben's boy. They were boys. There's a reason Ryan Switzer lasted as long as he did because he was Ben's friend. Yeah, Ben did what he could to keep him around. I know the Penix pick was a head scratcher by itself, but for Atlanta to bypass Odunze is odd. Cousins, London, and Bijan and Pitts, that would have been crazy good. I said that too. I wrote about it in my winners and losers for USA Today. They were obviously, the Falcons are everybody's loser. And I think a lot of people are saying that same thing. Like you could have either just taken Rome Odunze and made your offense that much better. You could have taken a defensive player there, either at cornerback. You could have taken like a Quinion Mitchell. You could have taken a Terrion Arnold. You could have drafted an edge rusher. You could have traded down and done that. There were so many smart things that the Falcons could have done, and they did none of them. So that pick is indefensible. Like you can try and sugarcoat it all you want. Be like, oh, well, actually, no, dumb. Absolutely dumb. My bad bringing those memories back. I'm trying to think of anytime I hear the name Ryan Switzer, the first thing that comes to mind is they were playing the Rams in 2019, the year that Ben got hurt. They're playing him at home, and Switzer is fielding a punt, and he catches it with like 10 yards between he and the first defender or whatever, and he loses yards on the punt return because he's like trying to reverse field and shit rather than just run forward. So that's what I think of when I think of Ryan Switzer. No disrespect to Ryan Switzer. I'm sure he's a very nice dude, but you know, we'll see. They're scared by Desmond Ridder. They're scarred by Desmond Ridder. No, if you're scarred by Desmond Ridder, that's why you pay. That's why they got Kirk Cousins and sent Desmond Ridder to Arizona. It just makes no sense optically. And then it made Kirk mad because he didn't know about it. Of course, Kirk didn't expect that. Signed a 4-year deal. Why the hell are you drafting a quarterback at number 8 overall? Because if he makes it to the end of that 4-year deal, which would be the best case scenario for Atlanta, because that means that Kirk was good for 4 years. You're starting Penix when he's, 28, 29? It does not make sense. Dante Moncrief is the worst. Yeah, no, I remember that. Those were tough times. He didn't last very long. I was excited when they signed Dante Moncrief too. I think they signed him from the Colts. He'd spent 1 year there after being in Jacksonville, and then he dropped everything that came near him. It was horrible. Who do you think they're going after? They're calling everybody, man. They want everybody. They're putting feelers out. Like I said, it's pretty well known, or well accepted at least, and largely reported that they reached out to San Francisco about Aiyuk and Deebo just to try to see if they could get either of them. I was told that they reached out multiple times to Denver about Courtland Sutton. The Broncos don't want to part ways with Sutton, but they also don't want to give him a new contract. So all that's pretty fuzzy right now for Sutton and the Broncos. And then Ben Albright said that there was at least 6 teams that the Steelers reached out to. And I think he said one of them was Seattle. And so one can assume that they reached out to Seattle about DK Metcalf or Tyler Lockett. But that still leaves 3 teams. If there was at least 6 teams that they reached out to. So I'm assuming, I'm just going off guessing and logic. One of them was the Raiders about Davante Adams. I think one of them was probably Washington about Terry McLaurin. And then after that, it's kind of a toss-up. It could be reaching out to the Saints about Chris Olave. Could be reaching out to Dallas and throwing a blindfolded Hail Mary trying to get CeeDee Lamb. I mean, who else could it logically be? If you go, I mean, we did this already before, but go division by division in your head. I don't think the Dolphins aren't parting ways with Jalen Waddle or Tyreek Hill, I wouldn't think. Bills don't have anybody that's worth going after. The Jets with Garrett Wilson, that's their best receiver. I think that they're really trying to go all in, so they wouldn't trade Garrett Wilson at this point. Patriots don't have anybody. Chris Godwin is the other name that I threw out from Tampa Bay, just because they have 4 receivers now that are legitimately like you could have a nice trio with Mike Evans, Trey Palmer, and now Jalen McMillan, who they drafted this year. Maybe they're open to trading Chris Godwin. What else? AFC South. Jaguars, no. They drafted Brian Thomas and they signed Gabe Davis and have Christian Kirk. I don't think any of them are going anywhere. The Titans, all of their good ones. Maybe DeAndre Hopkins. But even then, like, that's another situation where they have a young quarterback who they're trying to put as much pieces around him as possible to give him every opportunity to show that, like, hey, I can be your franchise quarterback. So, but still, maybe DeAndre Hopkins. They just paid Calvin Ridley a lot of money. Indianapolis, no. They just paid Michael Pittman. They drafted A.D. Mitchell. Houston, no. At least not in terms of a significant playmaker. I know that John Mechie was a guy that people were talking about. That's not a significant playmaker. So I don't think that it would be Houston. AFC West, Chargers don't have anybody. The Chiefs don't have anybody. Broncos with Courtland Sutton. Vegas with Davante Adams. So that's the entire AFC. That was a smart pick because quarterbacks get hurt all the time. You could have found one without taking one, number 8 overall, after you just gave a quarterback a ton of money. Nothing about that pick will ever, like, it does not matter what anybody says, because everybody's tried to defend it in certain ways. Like the Falcons did the whole, like, oh, we're doing the Jordan Love thing. Jordan Love was 21 when they drafted him. Your boy's 24. He's going to be damn near 30 by the time you start him. Completely out. And I wasn't big on Penix to begin with. I don't think he's going to be good. So all of it's just, it makes no sense for Atlanta. Could Boyd be the guy? Nah, I don't think so. Because it doesn't make sense. They drafted Roman Wilson, who would have done, Tyler Boyd would have been Roman Wilson. They're both slot guys. It doesn't make sense for it to be Tyler Boyd because he's a slot guy. So I don't think it's Tyler Boyd. It doesn't make any sense. But even if we go, like, what? The Lions, no. They don't have anybody besides Amon-Ra. Packers have like 4 solid guys. They got Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Dontavian Wicks, Jaden Reed. I don't think any of them are going anywhere. I think that if any of them were to go anywhere, it would be in exchange for a bigger name wide receiver, if that makes sense. Like if they were to trade for like T. Higgins, I think they send one of those guys as part of a package for T. Higgins. But I don't think they're just giving one of those guys away, because they all play good roles in the offense. It's not going to be Justin Jefferson before any of you sarcastic bastards that say something about Justin Jefferson. It's not going to be Justin Jefferson. And then Bears-wise, we already covered. McLaurin, I think, was an option from NFC East. The Giants don't have anybody. Yeah, I think Chris Olave could be a fun wild card. Like, we get reports that, like, oh, man, reaching out about Chris Olave. I think that would make sense. If you said, okay, we'll trade a third round pick for Chris Olave. They spent a first round pick on Chris Olave, though. And they'll probably have to look into extending him next year. So that's something that will have to be monitored. Again, I'm not reporting that they did reach out to Chris Olave. I'm just trying to figure out who the other teams were that they could have, reached out to. See some Jameson Williams comments. Jameson Williams, I like Jameson Williams, but he hasn't proven to be like a proven vertical threat. They've used his speed in a bunch of fun ways, but, like the touchdown that he scored against the 49ers was off an end around. He hasn't shown them that he can be like a legitimate outside threat yet. I like him. I hope that he pans out, but I don't think that, at least as of right now, he has not quite lived up to what they need him to be. Because again, like the Lions, Amon-Ra is their number one, but he's their slot guy. Josh Reynolds was like their main outside threat, and he's now in Denver. Jameson Williams is the other one. I don't know who the hell else they have at receiver. I think Khalif Raymond's still there, but he's not a perimeter receiver. They got a bunch of stuff. It's not Jamar Chase. Let's knock that out of the way too. It's not Jamar Chase. Christian Watson, I don't think that, like I said, I don't think the Packers are going to get rid of any of those guys unless it's to get a bigger name receiver. So my best guess, they probably reached out about DK Metcalf. I do want to see Albright's specific tweet because I don't want to misquote him. And again, Ben Albright's my guy, one of like the first people who, he's been a very good friend over the years. So I like Ben Albright a lot. So I just want to make sure that I get his stuff right. Let's see who he was talking about. I think it was, okay. So this is from Benjamin Albright. They called about Aiyuk and Sutton and have been rebuffed. So remember, I had said that ahead of the draft and during the draft, they reached out about Sutton. The Broncos said no, they don't want to trade Sutton. At least with opening talks, they called about DK. So he's saying they absolutely called the Seahawks about DK Metcalf. I don't believe a trade would get done there until after June 1st, if one got done at all. So it sounds like they definitely are reaching out about DK Metcalf. I hope they know what they're doing. That's the one where I'd be like, all right, cool, but also it scares me. Scares me a lot. I'd be very iffy on it. I'd hope it would work out. See, Patterson is a running back only. Couldn't learn. Yeah, I think he'll be listed as just a running back. He'll have a roster spot, but I would be surprised if we saw him on offense very much. I think he's purely there to return kicks, which is what he was in Atlanta, by the way, last year, because Arthur Smith didn't really utilize him outside of returning kicks, which now he'll be able to do a lot more of with the new kickoff rule, which will be exciting. Let's over under. Do you guys think that Cordero Patterson scores a touchdown on a kick return this year? We'll go over under half of a kickoff return for touchdown. We going over or under that? Over under the number. Give me one kickoff return for Cordero Patterson. We going over that? Mark says over. DK would go insane in AAC North games, good and bad. Yeah, if Marlon Humphrey, holds him to 2 catches, he's going to like shit him or something and then get suspended. That worries me, man. Like, there's been plenty of games against the 49ers where like who the hell was it that he like legitimately hurt a guy for a while. I think he like fucked up his ribs or something. I can't remember who it was, but find me the video and like drop me a link because it definitely happened. And I think it was against the 49ers, where he just completely just blindsides or cheap shots a guy who's not looking after he locked him down in coverage because he was pissed. And the dude was like legitimately hurt for a little bit. DK Metcalf isn't my cup of tea. I've been pretty outspoken about that. So, again, talented player. But there's been times where he's shown to have a weak spirit, where he just gets pissed off and lets his emotions get the best of him. So I'm not too big on him, man. Talent-wise, he's great. Emotionally, not doesn't keep his cool, and that worries me. If I could have my pick of either him or Lockett, I would choose Lockett. Because I at least know Tyler Lockett's good. I'm getting a professional. I'm getting a dude who's not going to freak the hell out. I would rather have Tyler Lockett. In terms of all the names that we've named, DK Metcalf for me is at the bottom. Specifically for worries that he's just going to be not great in terms of keeping his emotions together. Now, I'm not going to pretend to know what he's like in the locker room in Seattle. So, it could just be on the field where he just loses his cool. And if that's the case, still not great, but I can live with that. But again, I'm not going to pretend to know what, how his teammates feel about him. I don't have that sort of insight. I think they can get Sutton from Denver, but it doesn't seem like either side will budge on what they are willing to offer or take. So the thing with Courtland Sutton, Mike Kliss, who has covered the Broncos for a really long time, is very good at what he does. He put out a report last night amidst all of like the trade rumors and stuff, because that became like the talk of Twitter. And he basically said it's not Courtland Sutton. The Broncos don't want to move Sutton. Both player and team are in a good spot with each other. So I did some digging and asked, hey, are things good with, Courtland Sutton and the Broncos? To which I got a resounding no. Courtland Sutton is not happy because he wants a new contract. The Broncos aren't willing to give him a new contract because he still has 2 years left on the deal. They don't want to give him a new contract when he's still got 2 years left. But he only has $2 million left in guaranteed money. So that's where the crossroads is with Denver and Courtland Sutton. They don't want to trade him, but they don't want to pay him. He wants paid, or he wants traded to a team that will pay him. And it just seems to be, the immovable object meets an unstoppable force, where there's just no budging right now. So I did a full write-up on the report. It's on USA Today. You can go read it. But there's a ton of connections with Sutton in Pittsburgh, where obviously Russell Wilson's here in Pittsburgh, where he had a career high 10 touchdown receptions last year with Russell Wilson. Him and Russell Wilson have a very good relationship. But also, Zach Azzani, the Steelers' new wide receivers coach, was the Broncos receivers coach from 2018 to 2022. So there's a lot of connective tissue, a lot of familiarity for Courtland Sutton in Pittsburgh. So there's reasons why that has been so widely speculated. It's because there's so much connective tissue with so many different pieces in Pittsburgh. And it would just make sense for everybody involved, where the Broncos now have a very crowded wide receiver room. They just drafted Troy Franklin. They have Marvin Mims, Tim Patrick, Lil Jordan Humphreys there as well. So they have a lot of guys there already. And if Courtland Sutton wants paid a little bit more, the Steelers can afford to do it because they're going to have a ton of money next year. And they wouldn't be paying him as much as Brandon Aiyuk. So that's, another thing that fans have been worried about. Is like, oh, no, if they get Aiyuk, they're going to have to pay him. And God forbid you pay a really good player really good money. But they wouldn't be paying him as much as they would be paying Brandon Aiyuk. Probably be like $8 to $9 million less than they would be paying Brandon Aiyuk per year. So, again, there's all this talk about Courtland Sutton, because there's so much connective tissue between the Steelers and Sutton. Can I link the articles to the page? Yeah, sure. I can do that after the fact. But if you just Google my name followed by Courtland Sutton, the USA Today article should pop up pretty close to the top. So, yeah, if you just Google my name followed by Courtland Sutton, all of the reporting stuff that I've done on it should appear within, the first few links. It'll appear spread across USA Today and Behind the Steel Curtain. So if you want to read up, the more in specific stuff with it, you can read it there. and continue following the work that I do for USA Today and Behind the Steel Curtain. Steelers coverage every day. Staff did a really good job throughout the NFL draft, so that was very, very nice. And then, coverage for USA Today, league-wide stuff. So if you're interested in that, by all means, keep reading. I appreciate it. I need an Aiyuk Steelers jersey. Yeah. I mean, if you have a Chase Claypool jersey, you can reuse it to get some black tape and yellow marker. And obviously, that's the one that people are hoping for the most is Brandon Aiyuk, for obvious reasons. He's a tremendous receiver, and he would be a real difference maker. And as I've said before, it's all going to come down to, all right, how good are the quarterbacks? That's what everything will hinder on. Is Russell Wilson and or Justin Fields good enough to get them there? Good enough to get them to a point where they can be considered contenders? We'll find out. We'll find out. And by the way, next Thursday, NFL schedule release. So that will happen on Thursday. Depending on when the site in which I use to predict every game, depending on when that gets updated, I will either do my schedule or my game-by-game prediction video. The first one I do 2 every year, one the day of the schedule release, one the week of week 1. So depending on when I get it done, I will either do that on Thursday or I will do it like Friday. It'll be within those 2 days. So that's always fun. I love doing that. That's one of my favorite pieces of content to do every year. So I will be doing that. That'll be very, very fun. So be sure to set your calendars for next Thursday and or Friday to see my game-by-game predictions for every team. For this one, actually, you know what? Since this is like the Steelers show, maybe I'll just focus on the Steelers part of it. I'll show the whole graphic, but we'll dive like in depth to the Steelers stuff. And if you have any questions about the other stuff, then we'll get into it. But I'll have the whole graphic up. We'll talk about it. We'll see where it takes us. It'll be fun. Oh, I did that thing where it right clicks again. You know, I hate that. I want the Steelers to have a DK Pickens fight versus Deebo and Aiyuk. Yeah, whoever wins has to be the Steelers receiver duo. They haven't made that official date yet, but it seems logical based on the last few years. I'm pretty sure I saw on the NFL website that it's May 9th. So let me pull up the NFL schedule for 2024 just to see when it's happening. Okay, so let's go here. I'm gonna read this. I'm gonna scan it real quick with my eyes. Okay, so this year it seems like, okay, so you know what? No official notice yet. Good call by Mark. So no official date yet, but everybody is speculating that it will be the 9th. And I'm gonna actually let me pull it up on Twitter and see if the NFL has said anything about it. And by the way, if you're on Twitter, NFL schedule update, a must follow around this time of year. NFL schedule update. His @ is Nerdington or Nerd INGON NFL. Absolutely need to follow NFL schedule update on Twitter. So let's see. So yeah, he's the one who tweeted out the video about the schedule release being the 9th. And he's pretty adamant that it's going to be the 9th. So we can plan for it to be that. We'll tentatively plan for it to be that day. So we'll see when it comes. But yeah, it's one of my favorite pieces of content to do. I do it the day of the schedule release and then the week before week 1. This will be my fourth year doing it. So that'll be fun. Hi, Gracie. Good to see you. I think DJ Chark would be a good number 2 for the Steelers. If it only ends up being DJ Chark after we're talking about like, oh, it could be Brandon Aiyuk, DK Metcalf, maybe Davante Adams, I'm going to be sad. If it was like 2019 and it was DJ Chark, I'd be pretty hyped. But if it ends up being him after all the speculation of, oh, Brandon Aiyuk, Davante Adams, DK Metcalf, I would be a little bit disappointed. So hopefully not. I know all of you in the comment section right now. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're not already, subscribe to the channel. It seems like Black and Gold Breakdown will become at least a 5 days a week thing. I'm not going to do 7 days a week, but a tentative, Monday through Friday type situation would be a fair amount to do it. So, however often normal daily shows do it, I think Monday through Friday is okay. I don't seem to have like a normal time on these things, but if you guys have a time in mind that you would prefer, we can tentatively plan these as we go. But if that is, if you guys have like a preferred time, absolutely, that's something that we can discuss. And as I said the past few days, you can become a member of the Pump Fake Plus, which is the subscription-based plan for me. If you want extra content, I'll do members-only shows. It gives you, if you subscribe, you can ask NFL players questions, NFL media questions whenever I have players and media on. So a lot of different stuff that you can do with that. It's like I said, it's $2.99 a month. It's the cheapest one I can make. So extra content for me and gives you guys the opportunity to ask questions to players when I have them on, as well as all my friends around the NFL media sphere as well. So if you want to subscribe to that, awesome. If not, don't worry about it. If you want to leave a super chat, you can also do that. So all the different fun stuff that you can do to support me, it means a ton. Shout out to you, Mike. Oh, thanks, Keyshawn. I appreciate that, man. Sincerely. We need another number one big time. I do. Hey, man, I agree. Right now, I mean, we know who they have. And the issue is like Calvin Austin's not terrible. Van Jefferson's not terrible, but they're not game changers, And Calvin Austin's not an outside guy. He's not going to, be aligned out there. Van Jefferson can be, but he's not a game changer. So I think that's what they're really targeting is a game changer, or somebody who's in that top 25 receiver conversation. Because like I said, the Rams were also a team that reached out about Courtland Sutton. And by the way, imagine that. Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, and Courtland Sutton. They'd have 3 top 25 receivers that defenses would have to worry about every week. With Matthew Stafford slinging it, Sean McVay just drawing up poison for defenses. That would be fun to watch. As like a football fan, if he goes there, I would be like, okay, that's pretty rad. I would enjoy watching that. No shade on GP at all. He's going to go insane. Yeah, no, I think that this is going to be an offense that suits what he does best very well. Because what he does best is he's a 90-degree receiver where he's either running very straight, or if you get him running across the middle, throwing him the ball, get him yards after the catch, that's great. But he's not somebody who's known as, a route running technician, great separator. But the things that he does well, he does very well. And I think that this is an offense that will absolutely utilize a lot of that. Miami has too many weapons. Tua is lucky. I think you were the one who talked about Joe Burrow needing weapons. Tua is a guy who's proven, if he doesn't have, 2 of the fastest human beings on earth, he's not great. And even when he does have that, they can't get past the wild card round. I think this is going to be Tua's last year in Miami. I've said that for the past few weeks. If I'm looking very far ahead, I think Dak Prescott, Miami Dolphins quarterback, is the route that I'm thinking is going to happen in 2025. I think Tua's not good. He's fine. I think I did my quarterback rankings, my pre-NFL draft quarterback rankings. I had him 19th. His numbers make him look much better than what he is, and that offense and those players make him look much better than what he is. Man, I'm not a big Tua guy. Fun fact: I looked it up today. Zay Jones was number 5 above Aiyuk in usage and targets last season. Not saying that he is Aiyuk, but had better production last year. He just got released. Yeah, he did get released today. The Jaguars had drafted Brian Thomas, and they also had Christian Kirk, and they signed Gabe Davis. So those are going to be their big 3. They also have Parker Washington, who they drafted out of Penn State last year. So they feel confident in those 4. And Zay Jones just happened to be the odd man out. Zay Jones also had the issue where he would get really hot or he would just disappear. He also had a drop issue where there was one play in specific I remember 2 years ago against the Titans. Trevor had one of the best throws I've ever seen in my life. It was around like the 50-yard line. They ran play action, and Zay Jones was coming on a post to the end zone, and he had a safety coming over the top and a cornerback in front of him. Trevor fit the ball perfectly into the window, and Zay Jones dropped it in the end zone. So like that stuff like that is probably why they felt like, all right, well, we got Gabe Davis, Christian Kirk, and now drafted Brian Thomas. We can afford to move on from him. I don't like the coach for Denver, or I don't think the coach for Denver would like to help Russell Wilson. So I don't think he would want us to have Sutton. Well, I mean, it's not necessarily Sean Payton's call. That's George Payton's call. And look, if the Steelers give him something good, if they give him an offer they can't refuse, I don't think that there's any sort of like ill will where they would actively like keep Courtland Sutton from going somewhere that he would want, or don't trade with the Steelers just because Russell Wilson's there. That's pretty rare. I don't think that will have any sort of effect at all. I don't think you got to worry about that. I would like Jalen Waddle. Miami needs cap space too, but they did just pick up his 5th-year option. Yeah, Jalen Waddle's not going anywhere, man. None of those guys are. They stick to the bit, and that bit is we have fast guys. Try and stop us, because they just drafted 2 more really fast dudes. They drafted Jalen Wright, the running back out of Tennessee, and Malik Washington, the receiver out of Virginia, who they're going to put him in a slot. They're going to put Jalen Wright in the backfield to relieve Devin Achane and Raheem Mostert when they need a breather, or if one of them gets hurt. Malik Washington can come in and play in the slot. Yeah, they're committing to, we're a track team and we know it, and that's who we are. And good for them. I mean, it's gotten them to the playoffs the last 2 years, so we'll see. Tyreek said he's retiring at the end of this contract. I wish we would get Waddle, but they'll never let him go. No, Jalen Waddle's going to be there for a long time. He's going to get paid big money by the Dolphins, and he deserves it. I love Jalen Waddle. He's terrific. Big Jalen Waddle guy. But yeah, in case you just joined late, Omar Khan said today on the Pat McAfee show, he shot down any sort of like receiver trade rumors, which of course he's going to do that. No general manager in their right mind is going to go on, except Chris Ballard, of course, as Concepts pointed out. But no general manager is going to go on, TV and say, yeah, we reached out to Denver and they told us to fuck off. So there's that. No one's going to do that. Anytime a question gets asked like that to a general manager, they're going to give a very general manager answer. Just like, yeah, no, we're going to do what we can to make the team better. All options are on the table. Every general manager ever. I don't know why they even do TV spots, man. They all say the same thing. And you also got to take it with a grain of salt, because Omar Khan is the same guy who said, oh, we believe in Kenny Pickett, and then traded Kenny Pickett. Same guy who said, oh, we believe in our internal options at center, then drafted a center because he knew that was bullshit. So, and again, no general manager is going to give away their plans on TV or really to the media. Like, they're going to keep that stuff in-house. After it happens, some of them will give you a little bit of insight on, their thought process and whatnot. But until something happens, man, you're not going to get too much out of them. So all this stuff about Omar going on McAfee and what he said, I very much just don't pay attention to it. Or I shouldn't say I don't pay attention to it, because it was a fun spot, but I take everything he says with a grain of salt when it comes to that type of stuff. Bears or Steelers? What are you asking, Worthy? Who I think is going to be better this year? At Pittsburgh. I think the Bears are going to be fun, though. Like, very quietly, Bears are going to be fun. Defense is going to be pretty good. I love Montez Sweat. Montez Sweat, I think, became the first player in history to lead 2 teams in sacks, because he got traded by the Commanders last year and still led them in sacks, and then he led the Bears in sacks after he came over. He's pretty good. I like him a lot. They got Jalen Johnson in the secondary. A lot of Steelers fans wanted to see Jalen Johnson be a Steeler. So they got guys that I like in the secondary. Commandments in the middle of the field. So they got guys at every level on defense, and then offensively, they're doing all they can to put good pieces around Caleb Williams. I think that the Bears are going to be fun this year. So we'll see. I'm very, very excited to watch the Bears. Bears built a great team. It's all on Caleb Williams now. Yeah, and I think that Caleb will be fine. I think Drake May is going to be the best quarterback out of this class. I think Caleb will probably have a better year this year, but I think overall career-wise, I think that Drake May will be the best out of this class. I'm a big Drake May guy. Big Drake May guy. Marjo, hello. I only want Aiyuk. I can't promise that. It would be cool. I mean, he's the top option, I would say, for probably everybody right now is, if you could pick one guy who's been talked about with the Steelers, I'd probably guess most people would say Brandon Aiyuk. But, they asked about Brandon Aiyuk, asked about Courtland Sutton, asked about DK Metcalf. They're big game hunting. So we'll see who it ends up being. But I'm excited regardless. Like I said, this is the most excited I've been for a season since pre-elbow injury Big Ben, since 2018. I'm very excited about that. If you have any other comments, questions, feel free to drop them in the chat, by the way. Doesn't even have to be necessarily receiver related. Can be anything Steeler related. Can be anything NFL related. Whatever y'all want. But I posed a list of guys of who I think it could be that they're, or at least who they're asking about outside of Aiyuk, Courtland Sutton, DK Metcalf, Deebo Samuel. Davante Adams could be a name that they've inquired about with the Las Vegas Raiders. Chris Olave could be a name that they've inquired about with the New Orleans Saints, because the Saints aren't going anywhere. I think the Saints are the most boring team in the NFL. Nothing about them is interesting. They have a quarterback who's not going anywhere. They have a good receiver who's unfortunately trapped with a bad quarterback. I used to be a really big Derek Carr guy, but last year he was not good. They keep paying guys thinking that they're like one or two players away from being good. Like they're like, okay, we'll bring in Chase Young. I'm like, okay. Bring in Willie Gay. Okay, dude. That's a team that needs to really just start cutting their losses and accept the fact that they stink and go for a rebuild. Just completely demolish that roster. Trade Marshawn Lattimore. Trade Chris Olave. Do whatever you got to do, man. Restart, because you're bad. And the worst thing that you can be in the NFL is 8-9, 9-8 all the time. And that's what they've been for the past, since Drew Brees left, really. So the past like 3-4 years, they've been consistently 8-9, 7-10, just right in the midst of, oh, we're not good, but we're not bad enough to get a quarterback. So, all right, we'll sign Derek Carr, which at the time, I mean, I liked, like I said, I used to be a really big Derek Carr guy. And then last year he stunk it up. By the way, they also have a really bad head coach in Dennis Allen. Might be the worst head coach in the NFL. Trying to think of who would be worse. We don't know yet with Gerard Mayo in New England. I don't think Todd Bowles is a great head coach. I think last year the Buccaneers' success was Dave Canales, who's now the head coach of the Panthers. I think Tampa Bay is going to take a step back this year. I don't think Todd Bowles is a good coach at all. I think he's a good defensive coordinator, but his defensive coordinator mind takes over in games too much, and that's a problem. I don't think Todd Bowles is a good coach. Good head coach. But I think that Dennis Allen very well could be the worst coach in the NFL. Worst head coach in the NFL. So they're just kind of trapped. That's why I think Chris Olave would make sense in this situation. Maybe they've reached out to Dallas about CeeDee Lamb. I mean, that would be a very blindfolded Hail Mary they're throwing from like the one. And they're just like, all right, fuck it. We'll see what they say. So the fact that they've reached out to Seattle about DK Metcalf, my guess is they've probably reached out to Washington about Terry McLaurin. I think that they're just putting out feelers, because there's nothing wrong with making the call and at least seeing. If they call Dallas and they're like, hey, we want to trade for CeeDee Lamb, the worst that Dallas can do is say, haha, that's good of you. No, and then hang up. So that's it. Trade Mike T. Look, man. Mike Tomlin has his issues, and I get that. Trading him right now makes no sense. Now, after this season, depending on what happens, if you want to have that conversation, sure, but right now that would make no sense. No sense. And by the way, I've been, especially this past season, I came down a little bit harder on Mike Tomlin than I have in previous seasons, especially after the 2 losses to Arizona and New England. I was like, all right, this might be where this thing needs to end. But, they put their money where their mouth is this offseason. They said, look, we're going to explore all avenues if it means changing. So we're going to. And a lot of people were like, okay, we'll believe it when we see it. And they've made a lot of moves that back that up, man. So Baker being better than Watson is hilarious. Yes, it is. I'm very happy for Baker Mayfield. By the way, that's another guy going into last year I crushed. I was like, the Buccaneers are going to be horrible. I called Baker Mayfield a walking beer bong. Like I came down on him hard. but hey, I was also the first to say Baker Mayfield proved me wrong. Kudos to him. Nice Place Creations. Mike Tomlin was a great coach. I agree. But at the same time, like, it's okay to admit, like, and I'm not necessarily saying this is the case with Mike Tomlin, but a lot of great coaches have been fired. Andy Reid was fired. And that's the comp that I usually make when it comes to Mike Tomlin, and is that he's right now, it feels like end of Eagles era Andy Reid, where they're just constantly banging their head against a wall and nothing's working. And, it might be better for both sides to move on. That's what I was saying last year. Again, right now we're going to see where the season goes. They've very much put their money where their mouth is and tried to get better. And Mike Tomlin is a top 3 coach in the NFL. Right now, he's probably the second best coach in football. Behind Andy Reid, he's probably the second best coach in football, So, and again, Andy Reid got fired. You think that the Eagles regret it? No, they got a Super Bowl. You think the Chiefs regret hiring Andy Reid? No, they got 3. But at the time, both Reid and the Eagles realized, okay, this relationship has, we've gone as far as we're going to go together. We need to move on. And both of them have had tremendous success after it. So, now I don't think that trading Mike Tomlin's the answer. He's going to have that job until he retires. And then you go from there. That's one thing that will be very, like, when the time does come and we're having conversations on here, I think the most talked about thing, like, it's going to be very interesting to see year 1 post Mike Tomlin. And you know what? A lot of people, myself included, are going to be like, man, remember when we were bitching and moaning about Mike Tomlin? What idiots we were. Because I think there's definitely going to be a time where whoever does take over for Mike Tomlin could be bad. It could go wrong. And we're going to be sitting here. The Steelers are going to be 2-8 and be like, wow, remember when the Steelers were 6-3 and we were all, had torches and pitchforks saying the Steelers needed to fire Mike Tomlin? That sucked. That was dumb of us. So it's, it'll be interesting to see when that time comes. So we'll see. If Tomlin had Mahomes, I mean, he had Ben Roethlisberger. He's a future Hall of Famer. Won a Super Bowl with him. So, again, this comes back to that argument with, like, quarterbacks and receivers. Coaches and quarterbacks, hand in hand like that too. Name me a head coach, that was consistently great without a great quarterback. I'll wait. There aren't any. Name me a coach who had consistent, deep playoff appearances, Super Bowl appearances consistently without good quarterbacks. There aren't any. So, quarterbacks, head coaches, receivers, they all go hand in hand of making each other better. That's why I never love the argument of, well, if this guy had this guy. Well, man, he doesn't. Got to make do with what you got. And in some way, Mike Tomlin, was in charge, not necessarily in charge, but I'm sure he had his say in drafting Kenny Pickett. Now, credit to him and Omar Khan and everybody for being like, yeah, let's just end this and trade him. That's good. But, quarterback, head coach, quarterback, receiver, they all go hand in hand. See a lot of Marcus Golden talk going on in the chat. We got Marcus Golden love. I always love seeing Marcus Golden love. Marcus Golden was very good in his role last year. I think right now they're happy with having Nick Herbig. I think he's going to have a larger role this year, which is why they're not, you know, too keen on like looking at other edge rushers. I think they're going to have a nice rotation of Watt being on the field the most often, Nick Herbig getting more snaps than he did last year, because last year he was consistently making impact plays when he was on the field. So if they were to bring back, one more edge rusher to have behind him, and if it ends up being Marcus Golden, thumbs up from me. I love Marcus Golden. He did great last year. Stafford is top 3 on my list. Your top 3 list of what, sir? You say quarterbacks of all time. I love Matthew Stafford, but let's slow our roll a little bit. Love Matthew Stafford, but ugh. He ain't a top. If you mean top 3 quarterback right now, I'd listen to that. But even then, man, he ain't better than Allen Mahomes or Burrow or Herbert. Now, tail end of last season, like the last 6 weeks, Stafford was a top 5 quarterback. He was tremendous. Last few years, I would listen to that. Yeah, okay. Last few years, you can put Stafford in there. I wouldn't argue with you too much. I'm a big Matthew Stafford guy. And by the way, I think that poor Justin Herbert is on the trajectory of having a Matthew Stafford career where all the prime years of his career are wasted with a horrible organization that wastes his talents, and he's not going to win anything until he gets out of Los Angeles. The poor guy. I love Justin Herbert. I hate what the Chargers are doing right now. Hate him. I would run it back with Golden and Edmonds. I want Terrell Edmonds to come back. The more that we talk about that, I want the Steelers to go get Terrell Edmonds. I think that would make sense. Cut Damontae Kazee and get Terrell Edmonds. I don't think Damontae Kazee's very good. Don't think he's very good. I think I'd rather be asked for 2 years, which we won't be, than stuck in 10-7. But I mean, there is another situation or another option here where they go from 10-7 to getting a good quarterback and then going to 12 wins and winning playoff games again. I think that's something that fans also like. It's not one or the other. It doesn't have to be let's suck for 2 years and get a quarterback, or just be mediocre. You can be mediocre and then get a quarterback. The Falcons just did it. The Rams did it. The Rams didn't win a Super Bowl. The Rams got to a Super Bowl and then had a few more years of Jared Goff and realized we can't do this with Jared Goff. Let's go get Matthew Stafford. And then in year 1 with Matthew Stafford won the Super Bowl. There's other ways to do it. I wish the Steelers operated more like the Rams, which, I mean, this offseason, we're starting to see them lean into that a little bit. But I wish they operated more like the Rams, where they're like, okay, we can get established great players by just trading draft picks. Let's do that. I wish that they would do that. Donnie, the trade rumors are true. Who's the top of your list? My list hasn't changed, man. It's been the top 3 have been the same. Brandon Aiyuk, Courtland Sutton, Deebo. That's been kind of the consensus top 3. However, the fact that they've reportedly reached out to at least half a dozen teams. If Davante Adams is one of those guys, he goes up the list. Then the list becomes Brandon Aiyuk, Davante Adams, Courtland Sutton. And if they can get Davante Adams, and in that situation, they wouldn't be eating all of his salary. The Raiders would take some of that. I'd be on board for that. A 1 to 2 year thing. They draft another receiver at some point next year. Yeah, sign me up. Davante Adams would be very fun. I would love that. Love, love, love that. Some Damontae Kazee love. I think that Kazee's takeaways were more so like right place, right time. I'm not trying. This is going to be another Calvin Austin situation where people think I hate Damontae Kazee. I don't know Damontae Kazee personally. I just think that you can do better. And so the Steelers, that's why they signed Deshaun Elliott. I would rather have a 3 safety set of Minka, Deshaun Elliott, and Terrell Edmonds than having Damontae Kazee in that spot. So, just my thoughts. I don't think he's god awful. I mean, if he got cut, he would be on a team at some point. But I would rather have Terrell Edmonds in that spot. And of course, this will probably lead into the fact, maybe they'll sign Justin Simmons. Maybe. But I think they set aside all that money and made more cap space to do this receiver thing. So we'll see. I've said that like 4 times in this show. I said, we'll see. I keep noticing it in my head, but it's like muscle memory. Do you think the Steelers will focus more on the D-line next year? Probably, because this could be Cam Hayward's last year. If not this year, then next year. So I would think so. Luckily, they have Keanu Benton already, and maybe Logan Lee becomes something. That would be cool. Logan Lee's very athletic. So maybe they get something out of Logan Lee. But yeah, Larry O, he's gone after this year. Cam, this might be his last year. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, I would assume D-line might be their first round pick next year, honestly. Because it's going to be a big need. But at the same time, I mean, if defensive line is your biggest need, you're doing something right. Not to like diminish the importance of defensive line because you don't want to get the ball ran down your throat. But, if you just need a defensive lineman, you can draft one in the first round and they can play right away. Or you can draft one in the second round and they can play right away. For the most part, there's obviously been, the Tevin Bryants of the world where he goes first round and isn't good, but just generally speaking. Edmonds didn't get turnovers, which is why they let him go. He started to a little bit more, but even then, like, safety play isn't just turnovers or bust. Like, Trevon Diggs at cornerback, everybody made a giant deal about Trevon Diggs because he had a ton of interceptions a couple years ago. Trevon Diggs is a fine cornerback. He's, certainly an above average cornerback. He's not a top 5 cornerback in the NFL. For him, it was either I'm getting an interception or somebody's beating me over the top. He took a lot of risks and a lot of them paid off. And a lot of them, were him being in the right place, right time. But like, people look too much at like an interception number. And if you don't have any, they think you suck. And if you have like a bunch, that automatically makes you like really, really good. Truth is usually somewhere in the middle. Terrell Edmonds is good. I think he fit what the Steelers wanted to do very, very well. He's not an option A safety, but when playing opposite of an elite safety, he fills that role really well. I'm a big Terrell Edmonds guy, man. Big Terrell Edmonds guy. You think Dan Moore gets traded this year or next year? Well, this is the last year of Dan Moore's contract, so he'll be a free agent next year. Maybe they move him, similar to what they did with Kevin Dotson last year, where they traded him to the Rams. I think that they could, because they could keep Spencer Anderson on the roster and have him be, the guy who comes in if somebody gets hurt. They got Nate Herbig, who could, be a reserve lineman as well. So it's possible. I don't know what they would get for him, but it's better than not getting anything. If they could get him for like a 6th next year, okay. A 5th next year, cool. All right. What about CB2? You think Dante Jackson or you think somebody else is better out there? I don't. Stephon Gilmore is the only one that could logically be better right now that's still a free agent. Most of the other guys out there are either worse than him or slot guys. Like a K'Wan Williams, he would be a nickel guy that would get brought in. Stephon Gilmore is the only one that I would think of. Like if he got signed, he would start. No, I think that they're pretty committed to just having Dante Jackson start. And then we'll see if they sign anybody else to address the nickel spot. Like I said before, I think Beanie Bishop, the undrafted rookie that they somehow picked up as a undrafted free agent, didn't get drafted. He was a consensus All-American, led the nation in passes broken up, had 4 interceptions. I think that he's going to start at nickel this year. That's my big old prediction. I think they might have just signed their starting nickel guy and he didn't get drafted. Which, I mean, hey, there could be, some highs and lows with that, of course, but every team in the league is going to have holes somewhere. There's no such thing as a team that has 0 holes. And right now, the Steelers' biggest one could be nickel, but even then, they have a promising guy there in Beanie Bishop who could develop into something, who could be, Mike Hilton 2.0, who goes from undrafted to really, really good. So, I don't know. I've been more optimistic this year than previous seasons. I'm really just kind of trusting the process, Who is running back 3? Is Cordero a wide receiver or running back? He'd be a running back on the depth chart. He'd be a running back. Please, no OBJ. He's caught up in too much for. Oh my God, we keep coming back to the Diddy stuff, don't we? I don't want Odell Beckham Jr. either, not because of these reasons, just because I don't think he's good anymore. The Ravens paid him $15 million last year, and he had 37 catches. I said something a few months ago. I think Odell Beckham Jr. is the most overrated player in the history of football because he had 3 really solid years to begin his career and then lived off that for the past 8 years. He hasn't been great since 2016. And yet for the past 3 off seasons, we've done this thing where we're like, where's Odell Beckham Jr. going to go? Who gives a shit? He's not making a difference. I don't, again, none of this is ever personal because I've heard only really nice things about Odell Beckham, especially from Mary Kay Cabot when he was in Cleveland. But I don't, he's not good. Not good. I want Cam back. Cam Sutton, I assume. It's possible. They've had the conversations reportedly, so we'll see if that leads to anything. Probably the guy from Georgia that they signed as an undrafted free agent. Yeah, Daijun Edwards. He was pretty good at Georgia. Had 13 touchdowns last year. Will probably be their third running back. Again, I think Cordero Patterson takes up a roster spot simply because he's going to be their kick returner. So I'm going to be intrigued to how they do it, man, because right now they've got 4 tight ends. They've got 4 running backs on the roster technically because Cordero Patterson is a running back. I don't know how the hell they're going to do it. That's why I'm saying I think that they're only going to keep 5 receivers and have Pat Freiermuth be the de facto 6th guy. So technically, if Freiermuth be one of the 6 receivers, they'll have 3 tight ends with Michael Pruitt, Darnell Washington, and Connor Hayward. I don't know what their offense is going to look like. I don't know. This depth chart at the end of camp is going to be very interesting because I don't know who they're keeping. I don't know who they're getting rid of. And I've been very adamant about this for a while. But if Connor Hayward's last name wasn't Hayward, he wouldn't get a roster spot. Which is, we know how that goes with the Steelers. They do this all the time with, all right, you're his brother, you can be on the team. Did it with Derek Watt, did it with Trey Edmonds, doing it now with Connor Hayward. It annoys me. I would send down Connor Hayward and put him on the practice squad. DK Metcalf on this team. Man, is insane. Again, very talented guy. Doesn't keep his cool when he's frustrated on the field. Legitimately injured a guy last year when he was pissed off and gave him a cheap shot. I don't like that. I actually think Connor should be used more of a tight end. He's fine. Especially in this offense, I mean, the tight ends are going to block. That's why Pat Freiermuth is going to be basically just a slot receiver lined up a little bit closer to the line of scrimmage than a slot receiver. He's going to be their Y. Or not their Y. Roman Wilson will be their, you know what I'm trying to say. But if you look at the snap counts from last year with Kyle Pitts, I think they're going to do some pretty similar stuff with Pat Freiermuth. And the guys that'll be the hand in the dirt tight ends will be Michael Pruitt, Darnell Washington. And again, a little call to action here real quick. If you're not already subscribed, please do that. That would be lovely. Apparently, we're going to start doing Black and Gold Breakdown 5 days a week because you guys keep watching it, which is nice. I appreciate it. So thank you. And if you want to become a Pump Fake Plus member, which is $2.99 a month, you get extra content, which is member-only shows. You can submit questions to have asked to NFL players, all my friends around the NFL media sphere when they come on, whether it be this show or the Pump Fake. So if that's something that you'd be intrigued in, absolutely, please do that. If not, totally okay. But yeah, please do subscribe to the channel. It helps out a lot. Leave a like, keep commenting. Lovely, lovely stuff. This is not English. I assume you're trying to say, James, hope the punter can be consistent. Yeah, Bill Burr, the punter. Cam Johnson, I think he'll be good. The Aussie from down under. All right, I'm going to come in here and punt the shit out of the boy. Yeah, I think he'll be fine. He was pretty good with Houston. So I think he'll be all right. How you feel about Corey Trice and Darius Rush? I like both of them. I was a big Darius Rush guy coming out of college. My friend Keith Sanchez, who was on the LSU staff when they won the national championship. He now does the Locked On NFL Draft podcast with my other good buddy, Damian Parson. So he was really high on Darius Rush last year. And I saw him in person at Mobile. He did pretty good stuff. I was surprised when, let's see, he got drafted by the Colts. They surprisingly cut him in camp. He gets picked up by the Chiefs, is on their practice squad, and then the Steelers pick him up off the practice squad. I was really excited when they did that. Played in the game against Tennessee. I think he had a ball go through his hands that was almost intercepted, or he tipped the ball that was picked off by Quan Alexander to end the game. So he made a few plays with the playing time that he had last year. Corey Trice, I was high on him coming into camp last year. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see him because of the ACL injury. But it's a young secondary, man. It's a very young secondary where Joey Porter, Darius Rush, Corey Trice, all only going into their second years, and then Dante Jackson's the vet on the outside. Outside of that, man, they don't have anybody. So, well, except Beanie Bishop, but guess what? He's a rookie. So it's a very young secondary. But I think that Corey Trice, and Darius Rush will be fine. Peyton Wilson on tight ends will be awesome. I'm so excited about him, man. So excited. I think that the NFL made a large mistake because everybody's worried about his injury history. It didn't keep him out of any games in 2022. Didn't impact him in 2023. He ran fast as hell at the combine. He looked really good in Mobile. Him falling to the third round is laughable, man. So I'm very happy that the Steelers look like they could be big beneficiaries of that, man. All right. Let's calm down here. No need for aggression here. We can disagree, but let's do it civilly. Don't think either of them could replace Dante Jackson later in the year, maybe. Perhaps. I think Corey Trice has a better chance of doing that. I think they're really going to try keeping Rush at nickel. I'd have to go back and look at like his predominant snap counts in college to see if he played a lot in the slot, played a lot on the outside, because I honestly don't remember. I just remember seeing him in Mobile, and people that I trust who watch more college football than I do were like, yeah, I like Darius Rush a lot. There was another corner that came out, was it last year? From South Carolina, whose name is escaping me, that got a lot of hype and kind of lowered Darius Rush's hype. Who the hell was it? He was a rookie last year. It's really gonna bother me that I can't remember it. Cannot remember it. But I'll think of it. Or somebody else can think of it. That would help too. South Carolina's had a nice little string of corners recently. They got J.C. Horn. Now Darius Rush. So they got some dudes. They got some dudes. Let's see. Here's a good point. And against the Bills with Kincaid and Knox, Ravens with Andrews and Likely. That's another thing. NFL is really leaning going back into like 12 personnel because base defense more often than not now is nickel. And so how do you counterpunch that as an offense? You know, how do you counterpunch lighter defenses, heavier offenses? So going to see more two tight end sets, going to see more heavy stuff. Like last year, you know who led the NFL in 12 personnel? Kansas City. You know who led? I think Kansas City also led the NFL in 13 personnel with 3 tight ends. They're just throwing big dudes on the field and having them run over the middle. So it's very much going back towards, and that's how the pendulum swings in the NFL. When defenses start doing one thing, offenses counter that with doing another thing. And right now, that thing seems to be, the defenses are starting to adjust to more 3 and 4 receiver sets being the norm. So they're counterpunching with, okay, we'll go nickel and dime more. Once they start going nickel and dime more, offenses are like, well, we'll just go heavy personnel more. And it's going to be that constant tennis match between offense and defense. Constantly. Excited to see the offense run the heck out of the ball, being able to utilize Naji, Warren, and Patterson. I don't think it'll be Patterson too much, but I think that Naji Harris and Jalen Warren will get their fair share of carries, obviously. I don't think we're going to see Patterson on offense too much. I think he's predominantly going to be there to return kicks. Yes. Was it Emmanuel Forbes? Was he South Carolina? We sure he was South Carolina? I think he was Mississippi State, wasn't he? I'm just looking at the draft class from last year. This is going to bother me. I'll do this later, but I'm pretty sure Emmanuel Forbes was Mississippi State. I don't think he was South Carolina. He was Mississippi State. So there's that. It was nice. Shouldn't speak to. I don't know what that's referring to. Yeah, be nice in the chat, y'all. Because I don't know how. Was it Cam Smith? Might have been Cam Smith. We're gonna okay. Everybody, I've seen multiple people say Cam Smith. It might have been Cam Smith. Might have been Cam Smith. All right. Okay. Thank you all for everything. It's Cam Smith. Y'all are the best. Couldn't remember. Where the hell's he? He must not have been all that great if I couldn't remember. So hopefully he has a better second year. Naji is top 5. He's loving the fact that, all right, look, guys, I understand we're all Steelers fans. Respectfully speaking to Naji Harris, no, he's not. Naji Harris is fine. He's a fine running back. He's not a great running back. He's an above average to good running back. He's not a top 5 running back. I don't think Naji Harris likes me. I wrote something last year that Jalen Warren needs to get more carries. And then I went up to Najee after a practice. And I was like, hey, man, can I have a minute? Now, granted, it was the training camp where like their family was there and everything. So he was probably just chilling. But I was like, hey, man, you got him in? He's like, no. Like, cool. Sorry to bother you. So I don't think that Najee Harris likes me too much. I hope he does. I like Najee Harris. That was a fun little story. I think, look, Najee Harris is also like very like speaking to the media sometimes, especially after losses. Like he's just very, we know how Najee Harris is. I like him a lot. I think he'll get his option picked up. I think he's good. I don't think he's great. It's my thoughts on Najee Harris. Yeah, no problem, Donnie. Appreciate you watching. Hopefully it's good enough where you can go from X over to YouTube and give it a subscribe. Wink. Would appreciate. Warren over Najee. I mean, they do different things. They both complement each other very well. I love both of them. Stubborn on my Najee take. That's fine. Hey, everybody's allowed to have their opinion. I'm just giving mine in return. Just giving mine in return. Whoop, got so many people in here. Spice, I agree. 1,000 yards 3 years in a row is an average. Here's the thing with that. To get 1,000 yards in the NFL rushing, you have to average about 54 yards per game. It's not what it used to be. In a 14-game season, yeah, it was much more. In a 17-game season, if you do a 1,300-yard season, then you got my attention. Or like a 1,200-yard season. 1,000 yards anymore, like, again, it's not nothing. Not what it used to be. But to do 3 years in a row, yeah, I get it. That's difficult to do. But not like he did it as a rookie, and rookie season was not very good. And again, a lot of that had to do with the offensive line not being good. But he had 1,000 rushing yards as a rookie and averaged like 3.7 yards per carry. Like it's not as if he wasn't setting the world on fire. 1,700. Maybe. What would he have to average? Yeah, you have to average about 100 yards a game. It's possible. I think that Jalen Warren's going to get his fair share of carries, so I don't know if that number will be reached. But like combined rushing yardage, what they have last year combined. Now I'm curious. I must know. So let's see. We're just going to go Steelers stats 2024 and see what they ran last year. And that could help us put a little number on it. And don't worry, I see all your comments. We'll get to them, I promise. My phone's being dumb. Somebody pull this up. I need an assistant. As soon as I have enough money, that's what we're doing. We're going to have a producer. We're going to have an assistant. We're going to have people with another screen putting shit on the screen so I don't got to do this. All right. So between the two of them last year, they had about 1,700 rushing yards. Between the two of them. Najee had 1,035. Jalen Warren had 784. So between the two of them was about 1,700. I don't know if one of them is going to get 1,700 by themselves. I think that's a big ask. If he does it this year, he will be the first ever. Yeah, what is the Steelers' all-time rushing record? I don't know that off the top of my head. That would be a fun thing to look up. If I had to guess, it's held by Le'Veon Bell. 1,200 rushing, 500 receiving as a rookie. Did he have that much as a rookie? I don't think he had 1,200 yards as a rookie. I'm pretty certain he did not do that. Let me look. Yeah, we're going to keep playing this Naji Harris game real quick. Oh my God, he did. Again, yeah, 3.9 yards per attempt, 3.8 yards per attempt. That's my point there. Like, he's averaging less than 4 yards every time he touches the ball. And they kept feeding him the ball. So raw numbers, yes, I understand it looked much better, but the rookie year wasn't all that great. Receiving wise, I didn't know he had that. Most of that came from the Raiders game when he had like 14 catches. I didn't realize he had 1,200 rushing yards as a rookie. Crazy. Good for him. Again, I like Naji Harris. I'm not trying to dump on him. I think he's a good running back. I think he'll get his 5th-year option picked up. I saw somebody ask that today. Are the Steelers going to pick up his 5th-year option? I think so. I think he's done more than enough to earn that. Okay, I see a lot of people in here. Hi, Rob. Pittsburgh Steelers have invited cornerback Sean Stevens, the cousin of Joey Porter Jr., to their rookie minicamp next year. Yes, I did see that. By the way, shout out Alan Saunders. That's my dude. I love Alan. That's just another one of those things. We talked about it earlier. If you're related to a Steelers player and you play football, odds are you will be a Steeler at some point. And this is just exhibit Z of that. There's so many of them, man. Which, I mean, it's an invite to rookie minicamp. That's not a big deal. If he impresses, then maybe he'll be in training camp, but we'll see. We'll see. Canada ran the same awful play call for. Yeah, no, Matt Canada sucked. We know. We know he wasn't good. What a day that was, too. I remember that. It was the week of Thanksgiving. They fired him. I think it was like the Tuesday or Monday afterwards. Crazy. I didn't expect it to happen in season. Pretty happy about it, though. He's going to Phillies mini camp, too. Good for him. Barry Foster ran for 1,690 yards in 1992. Good for Barry Foster. Trying to think. I think Mendenhall had one year where he had like 1,300. Or maybe that was Willie Parker. I'd have to look. Willie Parker had some nice years. They had like a good stretch of running backs. Obviously, Bettis into Willie Parker was a nice transition. Willie Parker ruled. Rashard Mendenhall did not. Not a big Rashard Mendenhall guy. They had some. Oh yeah, after that it was like Isaac Redman, Jonathan Dwyer. Yeah, there were some dark times at running back for the Steelers. Those guys are like cult heroes now, but they aren't good starting running backs now. Isaac Redman was a week 1 starting running back. Yeah, that was some times. Oh my goodness. I'm trying to think of, there was something else I wanted to address today. But I think like the trade stuff really has been the focus, obviously, for obvious reasons. I get it. That's why stuff keeps getting pushed back. So at least tentatively right now in tomorrow's show, we'll talk about Luke Keuchly talking about Peyton Wilson. We'll talk a little bit more about Peyton Wilson. Jaylen Warren talking at Cam Hayward's live show during the draft and what he said about the quarterbacks. That'll be more for tomorrow. We'll get y'all opinions on those. But just to put a bow on this, the receivers discussion. When it comes to who they've reached out to, when it comes to what they're doing, it's very clear that they have a goal in mind of getting a big name receiver. And whether that's Brandon Aiyuk, if they keep, trying to work out a deal there, same situation for Deebo Samuel and Courtland Sutton, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. I don't think it'll be Terry McLaurin. It may be Chris Olave. Again, those last two are just me kind of throwing out names in terms of if they've reached out to 6 teams, I assume that the Commanders and Saints would be 2 of them for their receivers. But also understand that it could be a while, especially if it's a Sutton trade or a DK trade where it has to be, a post-June 1 type situation. We could be having these conversations for, a month. I hope not. I hope that we can at least have them come to terms with the trade and then do all the fine working of it and, make it official to the league after June 1st. But there's a chance that this goes on for a while, and we're gonna keep talking about it because it's only gonna be May, still a little bit away from training camp, but I don't know about y'all. This offseason has gone by very fast. Last offseason went by very fast, in my opinion. Maybe it's just as I get older, time seems to go by faster. But it's going by quickly. Just to put it into perspective, think about how long you think the Super Bowl, like how long ago the Super Bowl was ago. You got less than that to wait till training camp. You got about a month less to wait till that till training camp. So it'll be here before you know it. We'll have all the conversations about it. I'm going to be in Latrobe. I'm going to try to be there at least every day during the first week, and then tentatively spread out throughout. But I'll be there, and I'll be doing live written reports, giving my observations and thoughts after each day. We'll do streams on here after each day. Just I can tell you what I saw. So just make sure that you're subscribed for all that. And then during the season, I mean, hell, we can, like I said, if we're doing this daily now, then I'll just make it daily in the regular season too, where we have daily conversations. It'll be similar to what my buddy Chris Carter does with the Locked On Steelers podcast. Noah Strackbine, I think, does all Steelers talk daily as well. It'll just be, similar to that. So I was planning on doing it, twice a week, once after the game, once, before the game, like on a Friday. So, but the fact that, yesterday, I think at one point we had 900 people in here at one time. Right now, around 300. If it's going to get that many views and people are going to, be tuning in, I would be stupid to not do it every day. But I appreciate you guys for tuning in. I'm going to read all your comments. Don't worry. I see a lot of you keep coming in. So I'm not going to leave until we get to all of them. Where do I start? Okay. So a lot of this is, okay, Justin Fields extension or no? I think so. They're not picking up his option, but I think they'll do like a 2-year extension. Mendenhall, 1273. Good Lord. That's hilarious to me. Imagine if the O-line sucks this year. I don't think it will, man. I'm pretty confident in the offensive line. And about the Saints, they drafted a good quarterback in Spencer Rattler. A lot of people are high on Spencer Rattler. We'll see. I know I keep saying that, but a lot of this is just very much we'll see situations. In terms of Rattler, I would have loved to see him go to the Raiders because I think that would have been the funniest quarterback room ever. Garner Minshew, Aiden O'Connell, and Spencer Rattler. Oh, that would have been great. I would have loved to have seen a Hard Knocks with that. That would have been funny. With the Saints, yeah, I mean, that, man, it's going to be like week 5. Derek Carr is going to throw 2 interceptions, and the second one's going to be a pick 6. And that's going to hit New Orleans like cocaine. It's just going to be like, put in Rattler. Get Carr out of there. And I'm happy I'm not a Saints fan because I can just watch it from afar and be entertained by it. O-line got better last year, and we added 3 great prospects at all 3 spots. No way it sucks this year. Yeah, I mean, Occam's razor would tell you it will be better. Obviously, we won't know for sure until we see them, but yeah, I think that they'll be better. Aiyuk, Metcalf, or Sutton. I think Davante Adams needs thrown in there, man. I think that there's something that could come of that. I think that the Raiders are going to be awful. They don't have a quarterback. I liked a few of the draft picks they made. They took Jackson Powers-Johnson. They took Brock Bowers. They don't really have a quarterback. And they have a horrible offensive coordinator. Luke Getsy is, I think right now, Luke Getsy would be the worst offensive coordinator in football. I don't know how he got another job. We talk about how bad Matt Canada was last year. Luke Getsy was nearly as bad. And if you want more insight on how bad Luke Getsy was, JT O'Sullivan does a few, I think at least one breakdown of the Bears offense last year on the QB School YouTube channel. He might have done more than one, but I watched one and it was, it's not good. I like Deebo. Yeah, a lot of people seem to make sense for the offense because he's a versatile dual threat guy who can play in the backfield and at receiver. So for this offense, I see the fit. What's the point of the offseason? Well, there's a thing called CTE, and too many. If the NFL played games too close together, then that would be bad. Football's the most violent sport in America, man. They need time to relax their bodies, hang with their families. And even then, man, like our off season isn't their off season. Like right now, a lot of them are doing their off season program where they're, they have the organized team activities. They're going to have mini camps. Like we might not see them on the field practicing and playing until July, August, but their off season programs have started already. They're going to be doing workouts and stuff. Like their off season really is like 2 months with breaks in between. But their off season isn't very long to begin with. For us as fans, it's long, but they're doing shit damn near year round. Preseason will be fun with Fields. It's always cool, but now even better. Yeah, I'm excited to see him. I'm excited to see all the new faces. Excited to see John Reese Plumlee. I keep holding on to that. I think it'll be fun to watch in preseason. But I've said this numerous times. I think Fields will start the season as the backup, but I think he'll be the starter at some point. Did you see the Tank Dell stuff? Yeah, he's involved in he got, I think, grazed by a bullet, or he had, been involved with a shooting where he was hurt. Apparently he's okay. That's good. Love Tank Dell. So hopefully everything is all well there. Looking forward to preseason 2. Absolutely. I think Broderick Jones stays at right tackle. I'm fine with whatever they do. Broderick Jones was good at right tackle. If they want to keep him there, cool. If they want to put Fatano there and put him at left, also cool. Did Tank Dell really get shot? Yeah, the Texans released a statement about it. They said that he's okay, though. Yeah. I think it was more like he got grazed. So I think he's okay. Speaking of hard knocks, you think AFC North? I hope the Steelers don't do it. As entertaining as it would be. Well, I say it would be a distraction, but Mahomes did the quarterback show and they won the Super Bowl. So I think it just depends on situation. And obviously having Patrick Mahomes is, the ultimate get out of jail free card. Keep going here. A lot of Adams is too old. Hey, he's still good. I'm not saying he would be, the long-term answer, but he showed last year he's still very capable of being a really good receiver. Even if it's just having him for 2 years and then having a receiver drafted between now and then, I'm cool with that. I like Davante Adams. Deebo goes before Aiyuk. I know a lot of people seem to think that, but as my friend Eric Crocker from the Locked On 49ers podcast pointed out, what Deebo does for the offense is harder to replace. You're not just going to find somebody who's, a pure running back wide receiver hybrid like that. Aiyuk is the better receiver, but it's easier to find, a good receiver than it is somebody like Deebo who's good at both. So wouldn't be surprised if Deebo gets traded, but I also wouldn't be surprised if they decide that to keep Deebo and move Aiyuk. Aiyuk, I wish, could force a trade like baseball. Some guys sort of force trades where they're like, okay, I'm just not going to play here. And some organizations are like, okay, we'll call your bluff on that. But yeah, it's if he gets paid, that's the biggest thing. He just wants paid, like most guys. At the end of the day, you make 2 things in the NFL. That's money and memories. Get as much of both of those as you can. And they know that. So Aiyuk knows he's good. He knows what he's worth, and he wants money. Understandably so. UFL putting pretty good product on the field. Haven't watched much of the UFL, but Wes Hills, the running back from the Michigan Panthers, Slippery Rock alum. Shout out Wes Hills. Kyle Sheets, Slippery Rock receiver, just got signed by the Saints. So shout out all my Slippery Rock alum getting things done. So I pay attention to those guys. If I see somebody from Slippery Rock do something, I get excited. Let's see. Pittsburgh probably dips into the UFL for a defensive back. Yeah, they were a team that brought in one of the XFL. They brought in Harrison Butler last year. I think that Hakeem Butler last year, who was a really tall receiver in the XFL or USFL. They cut him before camp was done, but yeah, they were one of the teams who brought in some of the spring league guys last year. Heard they were going to make it a whole division. Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. I totally forgot about that. I'm not really a Hard Knocks guy anymore. I used to be, when I was younger. And the NFL Network, around this time, would run the marathons. They'd show the 08 Cowboys won, the 09 Jets won. That's the one where Rex Ryan's let's go get a goddamn snack. That's the 09 Jets training camp. The 2010 was the Bengals, I think. So there were some good ones, but I don't watch it like while it's happening anymore. Steelers sign destroying. He hurt his neck, man. He might be done like playing football. That was a cool story. I don't know much about him, but it was something cool to see. 49ers have CMC on the team already. He's the hybrid of wide receiver and running back. Thing with that is, man, and I've said this before, I wrote about it for USA Today last year, where if you look at the 49ers effectiveness offensively with Deebo on the field compared to without him on the field, and that includes when McCaffrey's on the field, it's, they go from being the best offense in the NFL to the 14th best offense in the NFL in terms of, advanced metrics, EPA per play, things of that nature. So Deebo Samuel is much more important to that offense than people might think. He's very good. All right, we'll do these last few, and then we'll get on out of here for the evening. Get rid of Aiyuk now before he leaves you. Purdy's got an extension coming in a year. Yeah, the Purdy thing is interesting. I'll be intrigued to see how much money they pay him. But we'll that's something that we'll keep an eye. I'm going to be intrigued to see how much money they pay Brock Purdy for sure. Is Pearsall foreshadowing Aiyuk? Now, Pearsall is a slot guy, though. That's the thing I didn't understand about the entire thing was like, why not? If they were going to trade Aiyuk, I feel like they would have taken like one of the other outside guys. Pearsall's a slot guy. So that's the part that doesn't make sense to me. I hope they do keep Deebo and trade Aiyuk. I do too, man. Aiyuk is the guy that I want more than anybody. So, but I think we're going to call it there for the evening. Again, nice hour 45 as we keep doing this. But yeah, I think that's a good part to cut off. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. And again, if you're not already subscribed, please do so. If you want extra content, you can become a Pump Fake Plus member on YouTube. It's $2.99 a month. That's the cheapest one I can make. That gives you the opportunity to ask questions to NFL players and my friends throughout the NFL media sphere when I got them on. So, as well as members-only shows, different things of that nature. So you get a bunch of little perks for only $2.99 a month. Yeah, we'll be back tomorrow. We're going to talk about Luke Keuchly, talking about Peyton Wilson and all the comps to him. He was on Up and Adams yesterday talking about that. So I'm going to talk about that. Going to talk about some Peyton Wilson stuff. Going to talk about Jaylen Warren and what he said about the quarterbacks. Gave him a lot of love when he was at Cam Hayward's live show. I believe Roman Wilson was also there, and he gave Steelers fans a nice resounding compliment as well. So there's a lot to talk about outside of the receiver stuff. And I wanted to talk about it when, over the past few days, but this trade stuff has really just owned the news cycle. So I would have been dumb to not talk about it. So appreciate you guys for tuning in. Tune in tomorrow. We could do another 7 o'clock one. That's fine. 7 o'clock stream tomorrow. Talk about Peyton Wilson, Jaylen Warren, these quarterbacks, everything of that nature. That will be more of the focus tomorrow. Unless we get a trade between now and then. Then, of course, we'll talk about that. But tentatively, plan for that. Peyton Wilson and Luke Keuchly talk, because Luke Keuchly gave him a lot of love. Jaylen Warren showing love to the quarterbacks and maybe a little bit of shade to the former quarterbacks. Roman Wilson showed a lot of love to Steelers fans. Again, a lot more than just the receiver trade rumors to talk about with the Steelers. So we'll dip into that tomorrow. But again, please subscribe. I'll see you tomorrow on the Black and Gold Breakdown. You can go back and listen to the last episode of the Pump Fake as well, which is on the channel, or you can listen to that wherever you get your podcast. So see you tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in to the Black Gold Breakdown. A lot more to get into as the offseason rolls on. So see you then.